Hello, good afternoon. My name is Hector Garcia, and this is a new video for the class of migration and health. This video is the second part of the transmissible diseases. Last week, I uploaded on YouTube the first part of the video, and on this week, I was assigned to read three new files or articles that, of course, talked about the phases of migration, the multiple diseases, and how well they are bringing us some new solutions to the conflicts. So let's talk about it and let's well debate if all this information is true and it can be possible. So the first article is the one called Transit Phase of Migration. When we talk about migration, we think of four multiple phases. Before actually doing the action of migrating, of the migration, before anything, we have the phase of transit migration. In all that period, we also have the period when you are already on your final destiny, and the fourth one, which is when you decide to return home. So there are four different phases on the migration process. So transit phase would be the second one, which is the period between the immigration and the final settlement. It can be either internal or international. We also have to know, and something that I wrote down, that the human movement traveling from one place to another, it's a factor in the spread of diseases, which is logical, if you ask me. Something that I really think it was interesting, it's a study they made on Uganda, which is a country over in the African continent, where they found some forms of Plasmodium falcipa- falciparum, which is a bacteria, but there were found resistant forms. Okay. What's that supposed to mean? Basically, they are so much, they are resistant to different pharmacological medicine. Okay. So let's suppose that someone from Uganda decides to travel to Europe. Of course, one of that's a great huge factor for a spread of diseases. You got me? So yeah, um, basically what this article tries to establish, and I really liked, is that maybe one of the great solution would be make like a human map of different places where some bacterias, different um, diseases are located. For example, maybe in Uganda there are a lot of Plasmodium. Well, in a map, establish Uganda. Maybe in Djibouti or in South Africa, there are different bacteria well established over there. So that way, every time we heard about someone making the migration process that wants to migrate, that way we can be cautious and we will be more careful. Okay. Of course, there's another solution that I really liked about is that it they are calling out for help to the political system. the government should review, should look out for the most, how can I say it? The most mm, mm, watched, the most visited zones in the city so they can clean them up, they can make them, they can, well, yeah, they can make them clean, you know? So there are multiple solutions that I liked about in this article. Basically, in conclusion, this first transit phase of migration, uh, the transit phase is one of the most important ones. It's between the emigration and the final settlement. We have to be careful on the movement between different people, and especially not only be careful of how many people are moving from one place to another. We also have to be careful on where, which specific part, because in that specific part, maybe it's like a zone where there are a lot of multiple cases, scenarios of bacteria or a fungus or some other. Okay, specifically on Africa. The article talks specifically of Africa, and I agree because, for example, mosquitoes over there are mortals. They're basically even life or death. They carry a lot of diseases. Okay. Now we have the second article, which is called HIV prevention among Mexican migrants. Mexican migrants. Yes, HIV. It's, we all know as Mexicans that maybe we haven't, we don't have the perfect health system. And of course, the vast majority, unfortunately, the vast majority of children that are in schools, they don't have the correct information. The So that way we don't have the correct prevention of the HIV. Fortunately, HIV is not as popular or not as usual like back in the 80s, back in the 90s, like I don't know, Freddie Mercury, for example. Okay, so this article starts talking about, again, once again, the fourth phases of the migration that I already called them, mentioned them a few minutes ago. But here it explains the exposition to messages of the HIV, which all depends on the migration phase. What am I trying to say here? The more you have the exposition to messages of probation, the more probability that you will go to make you yourself a test of HIV. If I am in Baja California and I have a pretty good and notable information since I was a kid. I know a lot of HIV. When in that case, me personally, I will I would make myself a test of HIV in my future because I know about it instead of people that doesn't have or maybe that never have heard of HIV. You get me? It's logical. The more information you have gathered in your whole life, the more chances you will have of making yourself a test of prevention of that disease in your country. Something else, the the campaigns. I don't know how to pronounce it, but that campaigns. Well, yeah, I mean the health mm, campaigns. Well, yeah, I mean the health campaigns should be mobiles and should be adapted to the migrants. Okay, and it should be adapted to in which phase the migrant is currently being. I'll give you an example that I wrote down because I liked it. A Mexican farmer that's working on California, LA, for example. He never in his life got information had an education of HIV. Okay, never in his city or anything. But over there in California, there was an organization that offered him a free test. He doesn't know anything. If he knew about the HIV, he would totally agree on taking the test. But if he doesn't know anything about the HIV, he's more likely to refuse to take the test. Okay? So that's something that I liked about the diagnosed. Okay? And we have the last article, which is called Infectious Diseases in Migrant Populations in Europe. It's easy. It talks about that in what I take about this final article is that in Europe, we should design programs of prevention and treatment, such as vaccines, that must consider the traditions of the migrant and the language of the migrant. That way, migrants will feel comfortable sharing their problems and being not refusing to take the vaccines. Basically, in this conclusion, there should be an a synergy between the origin country and the new country to looking forward to the diagnosed. Okay, so yeah, that's basically most of the information. So I already mentioned the main points of the readings. Was there anything unclear or confusing to me? No, no, not right now, but it was difficult at the beginning. Actually, I think this has been one of my worst videos, sorry, but it was difficult to kind of explain it. So I hope you really get it. What was new? Actually, almost everything, especially the HIV article, the second one. It was new, and it changed the way of thinking because now I have more solutions, you know? And now I know that I should be more scared or careful of uh, of Africa if I ever considered of traveling to Africa. And I have to look out from which places and what bacterias or what um well yeah what diseases are over there. Was there anything I would like to explain further or learn more about? Mm, well, yeah, my Africa, basically. Plasmodium, I don't know. What else? Which other bacteria are living over there? And on my state, such as tuberculosis. And I already mentioned one specific example of the Mexican farmer. So yeah, hope you like it. This was my almost final video. So see you next week, which I think, if I'm correct, that will be my last video. So see you and have a nice day.